Hello, I'm Daniel Weiss, your host, and you are listening to my podcast where my guests and I focus on topics of nutrition, active lifestyle for health and performance. No fat, guaranteed. If you are new to this podcast, I hope you will enjoy it, and if you are a returning listener, visitor, please make sure to rate the podcast on Stitcher or iTunes, as it will help me to grow our community and get interesting guests and introduce interesting topics in future episodes. You are also welcome to join my Facebook group, which is linked in the show notes.
Yeah, for everybody who is listening, hey guys, and welcome in today's episode. I'm speaking with Rebecca, who is an athlete, and she is also a coach. And I would say that you would never guess that she's a vegan, judging by her looks. I mean, she's the kind of person that I have a poster above my bed. But that is not only because we are muscular, but from what I've seen on the social media, you are also very energetic, which for me is like a sign of a good health and just being overly a very energetic person, very healthy, very athletic. You do all kind of movement stuff. You are always cheerful. So maybe you'll share with us today, I hope so, your secrets to being energetic, healthy, and fit today.
It's the vegetables. That's the secret sauce.
Vegetables is a secret sauce. Yeah, that's kind of a pun. Yeah, so can you maybe speak a little bit more about yourself? By the way, you are on social media, at least on Instagram, as Simply Whimsical. And that is, as I read, also your coaching philosophy.
Yes, you got it. So I have been moving my whole life. I grew up dancing, and then I found CrossFit and started weightlifting. And I've explored a ton of movement since then. You are right. I like to think that I have a lot of energy, and something that is so exciting to me is that I keep eating more and more of it. So, I think I understand health, and then the more you understand, the more you realize there's still so much more to learn. So each time I learn more, I start to realize, wow, I can feel even better. I can have even more energy. I can help, my clients solve even more issues. So I like to consider myself a forever student. So even though I'm a coach and I teach and I educate people, I'm still always learning myself. There's always more to know. If you ever think that you know it all, then you're probably not in a good spot. So I like to think that I'm a forever student, even though I do coach and I do train myself a lot. I love it.
Yeah, so how long have you been actually moving? I really love that word. It's like really moving, not training.
Yeah, so forever, pretty much my whole life. And I'm very fortunate that I've gotten exposure to a lot of different types of movements. So I grew up dancing. Never wanted to specialize in just one type of dance. I wanted to be good at all of them. I loved that you could, for instance, in tap dancing, you could stomp on the ground and you could make beautiful sounds. Or ballet class, you can move slowly and you had to have perfect control through all these different ranges of motion. There's lyrical, where you got to make long dramatic lines to kind of counteract that was contemporary dance, which was a little bit more weird lines, kind of off the wall movements, but it still flowed and it kind of told a story. So I have it was something that I actually I enjoyed it, but it also felt necessary sometimes. So if I was having a good day, I'd want to go dance, right? And if I was having a rough day, I needed to dance. So movement was my form of expression. It definitely still is. I have the bias, but I really do think that all humans have an innate need for expression through movement. And some of them maybe have repressed it, whether or not they realized it a little bit more than others. But I think we all do have that inside of us. So whether, it's dancing or CrossFit or weightlifting or calisthenics or roller skating or running, it doesn't matter, as long as you find something that is a way for you to express yourself through movement. I think that's the missing piece of the puzzle for a lot of humans.
Now you made me thinking actually that Like, for example, when I want to express myself by movement, I go running. And that's, now that I see it, like going for a longer, slower run, it makes me like a boring person, right? You just go straight in line and run and run. Anyway, yeah, you can change the speed and so on. This is a different thing and play with the speed.
Right. And then sometimes too, just running, even though it can be monotonous sometimes, it's that meditative state. So even though it might
Right.
not feel like some crazy form of expression, it is a form of expression in the sense that it allows you just to be quiet, move, your body's doing its thing, and your mind is just along for the ride in that moment of, just nothingness.
Yeah, right. That's true. There's a lot of meditation involved. And actually, if I listen to music, it's like it makes me run in a different ways, just not only run in a straight line, but do some, I don't know, turns and pirouettes and whatever. I mean, things like that. So you have had all this kind of exposure to movement, and like you mentioned, dancing, ballet, and also like CrossFit and different kind of movements. And how does actually diet play, or what kind of role does diet play in that?
Ooh,
And
diet
diet,
is
diet, I
everything.
don't mean like reductionistic diet, but I mean like the way of eating.
It's huge. It's important. So I've been, just a little bit history. I have not eaten meat in well over a decade. I am vegan, fully vegan. I've been totally plant-based for over 7 years. And before that, I was vegetarian for about 6
Uh-huh.
years. I was the kind of vegetarian who had said, I can't give up cheese or this or that. And it was just kind of excuses. I understood that meat came from animals and it didn't feel good to eat that.
Mm-hmm.
But I never fully grasped how bad the dairy industry was, the egg industry was. And then I was in college, and there was one summer that I told myself, you know what? I don't want excuses anymore. I need to learn more. So I made a rule for myself that every morning for that entire summer, when I woke up and I ate breakfast, I needed to look up at least one research study or article on veganism or on the dairy industry or on, a plant-based lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was so dedicated to that regimen, and I remember each morning I ate oatmeal at the time, and I would eat my oats with all my little toppings on it every morning, and I'd enjoy my oats and learn about veganism. So
Yeah,
like I had a I got a good grasp on it, and I felt a lot more comfortable. So transitioned fully into veganism, and I have never looked back, because you get reinforced when something is going well or when you're doing right. Kept having all of these little indicators of things that were going well.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I've had 5 knee surgeries. Part of it was genetics, born with kind of loose ligaments, and then dancing exploited those. So my knees had hurt all of this, and getting stronger through weightlifting has helped take off the pressure of my knees, because when your muscles are stronger, your joints. But when I switched over to full plant-based, I realized my joints felt even better. And I was like, okay, there's got to be something to this. Another example that my partner and I had, he was not vegan when I met him. And then he decided to go plant-based because we had been together. CrossFit athlete
He
at the
decided
time.
it, or you made him?
I let him choose. He says, I sort of educated him and showed him the way, and it wasn't a hard decision for him or a hard transition. But one of the things that he realized that this was a real deal, that it made sense, was in CrossFit, a lot of the times you spend so much time on the bar. So if you're doing pull-ups or, bar deadlifts, whatever, you're holding on to bars a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, a lot of times your hands rip. So when you have a tear in your hand, it's kind of devastating for training, because everything you do, you need to hold on. And if you're missing a chunk of skin, it's really hard to hold on. So before, if he would rip, it would take him 5, 6, 7 days for it to heal. And when he transitioned to fully plant-based, he started healing in just a couple of days. he thought this is a miracle. This is so crazy. He teased me before that I would heal so fast, but then once he got to experience it for himself, it was a whole nother ball game. So that's a long diet and nutrition not only helps the way you look, but the way you cover. For diet and nutrition, it's like you're wearing these sunglasses and you think that's what it is. And then once you take the sunglasses off, you realize, wow, the world is even brighter. And that goes with nutrition. I've had some of my clients who, once we transitioned them to plant-based, all of a sudden someone who's their whole life has been saying, I don't really have a good sense of smell. All of a sudden they can smell more. And they tell me these stories of, I was walking to work today and I smelled all the bushes and I've never smelled them before. Or, the person in my cubicle next to me smelled really good and I could recognize their lotion that they had on, and I've never ever smelled someone's lotion before. So it's all these little things, these health indicators that we don't always recognize until we do. So I've got that awesome job of being able to show people, help them remove those glasses and kind of experience life in a little bit more HD.
And that's very interesting, especially when you speak about this recovery and because I get asked often, if I notice better recovery since I started with the vegan diet, but I mean I cannot quantify it, but now that you mentioned the example with your partner, with your boyfriend, it's like something that is quantified, right? I mean, it shortened the duration his skin needed to heal. So I'm really glad to hear that.
Right.
And so you were basically vegetarian, then you turned vegan because of your studies, of what you learned, and it improved your life, it improved your energy, and like you said, the vegetables are the secret sauce. So where do you get your protein from? Do you focus specifically on protein, especially because you are I would say strength athlete, but you also need to get probably a lot of carbohydrates in your diet because you do a lot of high intensity workouts, I guess.
Yeah. So a disclaimer, I'm going to talk for a second about what I do for myself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone listening should go out and do the same thing.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
part of what I do. With personalized nutrition is that it really depends on not only who you are in your history, but what your goals are, how you respond to certain things. So the way I do things, I don't recommend necessarily for everyone, but a little bit about what I do. I eat a lot. So I train frequently. I'm trying to be obviously a competitive athlete. So I need just a lot of fuel in general, and I burn it quickly. So I usually eat about 2,800 to 3,000 calories a day, anywhere between 150 to maybe 180 grams of protein. Carbs can fluctuate. They're right now about 300 to about maybe 400 at a really higher day, and then fat can kind of range, usually sits around to 80 grams or so. That's just where I'm at right now. So I do track my food. I have a lot of my own clients do track their macros, not in the sense that I don't want people to get intimidated by tracking macros, but all of my clients and myself use it as a tool to get a better understanding of how much you're eating, how pairing certain foods has what in them. It's all just tools to continue to help us grasp a little bit better on what those are.
I think that is very important because when I work with my clients and, for example, with women and people on plant-based diets, it's typical that they get a lot of carbohydrates, but not necessarily enough protein in their diet, because they have especially women, salad with rice. And I mean, it's purely carbohydrate-based meal, and they have this kind of meals all the time.
And if someone were to come to me like that, the way I work is I want everything to be a habit. So if your lunch every day for the last 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades has always been, for example, a salad and rice, I'm going to say, hey, keep doing that. That's great. I also want you to add into this meal like a half a cup of garbanzo beans or a half a cup of lentils on top. Something like that, where it gives them a tangible step to pair something that they're already doing well, that's already an ingrained habit, and how to upgrade that just a little bit so they can feel incredibly comfortable with that upgrade. Boom, they just added in 10 more grams of protein. Okay, now you feel comfortable with what you're eating now. Okay, we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of hemp hearts, on top of that. And now you have 15 grams of protein added on, or 20 grams in that meal, whatever it is. So I think that it's really important to get protein for everyone, regardless of what diet you are on. Protein is necessary for all of sorts of physiological functions. But that being said, protein doesn't have to look like a dead animal on a plate. Protein can look like legumes and lentils and like tempeh. Tempeh is a good source, or edamame. Edamame is something that's easy to put on everything. I actually just had in my breakfast this morning. So here's an example of a protein-dense breakfast. I had mixed vegetables, carrot spirals. I love those noodles that it's just like a vegetable, and it can be a noodle like zucchini noodles or beet noodles, that kind of stuff. I had some carrot noodles, edamame, lettuce, nutritional yeast, which has a lot of micros and it tastes really good. And then I actually had 2 like vegan patties. So there are a lot of vegan quote unquote meats that I recommend and that are good for people. The thing is that there are still a lot of plant-based meats on the market that are kind of junk foodish. So I do totally recommend, if you're going to try to decide between, should I have this like dead cow or should I have this vegan packaged processed food? I do recommend the plant-based one overall. But then once you get even more comfortable with that, you can get more selective and try to avoid the ones with any bad oils like canola oil or vegetable or hydrogenated oils. And instead opt for the ones that are coming from like cleaner sourced oils, like maybe coconut or avocado or, like flaxseed. So even within the vegan community, just because something is vegan does not necessarily mean it's healthy. So it's kind of a delicate balance that takes a little bit of education and time, but once you, just like anything, put in the time and you start to learn more, it becomes second nature. And they're no longer, my goal with all of my clients, for instance, is to get it so they're no longer thinking, oh shoot, how do I get more protein in today? They're thinking, boom, I know I hit all my protein goals. What else can I go crush in my life?
Yeah, that's great. So basically, what do you see is like a common mistake that people coming to vegan lifestyle, like maybe from your clients, or do all your clients are vegans or not necessarily?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. I'm actually really fortunate that I get to work with a lot of different people. So I've had people come to me who are already vegan. I have a kind of a niche of people who want to transition, and I can help them through that. And then I've also worked with people who told me straight up on the first day, I do not intend to go vegan. I want to hear what you have to say, but please no, I don't intend to go vegan. And what's funny is that over time, we still typically end up taking away the dairy, taking away, the cheese, the half and half coffee creamer, all of those little things. And then once people start to feel better, and they always do, then they start thinking, okay, maybe this isn't so hard. Maybe I can give up, my bacon and eggs in the morning for a delicious tofu scramble, It's just education. It's
That's
doable.
perfect.
It really is.
So how do you actually turn them into, let's say, more like vegan lifestyle when you speak about it? For example, that they reduce or completely remove dairy from their life, cheese, because cheese is very problematic, I would say, right?
Yes. And I have, without a single exception, it is foolproof. Every client I've ever had where I've taken away dairy, they've improved somehow. Whether that's they're less bloated, they don't have as much gas after a meal, they feel better, they're less droggy throughout the day. I have, without hesitation, every single person that we've removed that, they feel better. I've never had someone who said, oh, I took out, eggs from my lunch, the deviled eggs I would have every day, and I feel worse. Instead, they're saying, wow, I feel really good. What else can I do? And to not overwhelm people, I don't ever use the words, well, very rarely would I say, don't eat this or don't do that. Instead, my language around it is, why don't you consider adding in this instead? Or here's an easy upgrade we could do. Let's swap out this half and half creamer you put in your coffee in the morning. And here's 4 different links to different non-dairy creamers that you could try. And then over time, we might even try to get them down to where they just drink black coffee. So you're still kind of getting some of the good benefits of coffee without any additives or preservatives at all. But it's a process, and it's important to meet individuals where they are at and give tangible steps. If I were to show up on your door and say, hey, my car just broke down, I'm going to need you to rebuild me a car. You're going to say, what? But if I say, hey, my car just broke down, do you have a phone I could borrow, or maybe, a spare tire laying around somewhere? Then you're like, okay, yes, you can grasp it and you can start making some changes.
Yeah, this is like a step-by-step process, not like, hello, do you have time to speak about vegan lifestyle? So something like that. And so is there anything like specific regarding the diet that you focus on with clients regarding the vegan diet?
I guess it just depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
So some people, if they are already vegan, we just work on cleaning up their sources. We work on getting more to like whole food based. And then, of course, a lot of it's lifestyle. So someone who, for instance, I have a couple of people who work shifts. If you work shifts, so a couple nights a week, you're staying up all night long, your nutrition is going to look a little different than, another client who is a school nurse and regimented and has the same schedule every single day. So not only is it about the food, but it's the way, it's called food hygiene, like everything around the food. So are you, when is your first meal of the day? Do we time your meals based on when your training session is? Or there's so many variables. And something else too, related nutrition wise, is like feeding windows. So an example of a shift worker, someone who works shifts might benefit really well from doing something like a 10 to 12 hour eating window. So I use the word eating window instead of fasting. You are essentially fasting, but instead of us focusing on a fast, which is where you're not eating or drinking anything, sometimes drinking depending on what kind of quote unquote fast you're doing, but we'll focus instead on what you can do. So the eating window. So for instance, you work 12 p.m. midnight until 12 in the afternoon the next day every day. We might have you fast, for 10 to 12 hours, and on that other time remaining, that's the window you eat. So your body does have time to recover, let all the food come out of its system so it can start doing like cell repair. So there's all sorts of different little things within nutrition. So sometimes it's easy for us to get hung up on just the food, but bringing awareness to everything around the food is important too. One more example is like breathing. So taking some really slow, calm breaths before and after every meal helps put your body in the correct system, the rest or digest system, instead of the like fight or flight response. So you're going to digest more. Another example of a food hygiene would be limiting screen time. So if you're on you have a lunch break, you have a 30-minute lunch break. Instead of grabbing your phone and your meal and scarfing down your meal in one hand while you have your phone and you're scrolling through Instagram on the other hand, it's putting the phone down, taking some breaths, putting one bite of food in your mouth, chewing it for 25 to 30 chews per bite. So the more you break it down in your mouth, the easier it is for your body to break it down, and the more digestion can occur, and the more you're going to absorb. So you'll get more of the good just by slowing down, chewing your food. I always recommend like having a conversation with a friend, or, looking out into the distance and taking your lunch outside and being in the sunshine. And there's all of these factors around food. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Basically, like you mentioned, taking time, and especially I used to really eat fast and if I had like 10 minutes, just crushed the food, and now I really enjoy eating it slowly and taking my time.
And I bet you notice the difference too. It feels better.
Yeah, it feels much better. It's like meditative for me. Really like a guided meditation with food. So thank you for sharing this. And what do you think is also like a common mistakes when it comes to fitness? Because now it's probably a little bit about diet or about the nutrition, the way of eating. Now let's speak a little bit more about the fitness. Like, what kind of challenges do your clients usually face with?
I think the biggest clients and just people in general face is not having support. So people inherently understand the idea of it's good for me to work out, it's good for me to eat vegetables and drink water, but it's easier said than done. It sounds so simple, but it's when you're all day long and it's a fast-paced office and you didn't bring a water bottle that day and there's no drinking fountain around, and all of a sudden you look at the clock and it's 4 p.m. and you only had that glass of water from this morning. Your environment and the way you set up your environment hasn't set you up for success to make sure you're drinking enough water. Or for working out, for instance, we all understand we should, but that doesn't mean we've set up our schedule in a way where we get to the gym before work to make sure we get in our 30 or 45 minute, whatever it is, session, or finding something that works for you. So sometimes doing curls and squats. And that's the case. Doing jiu-jitsu, learning a new sport, or taking pole dancing. There's all sorts of different ways. So have a lifestyle that supports what you're trying to do is huge. So, example, or something that I think is kind of a misconception, is that people think you need to work out all the time to get further from the truth. Here's a good example. The gentleman that I'm working with, I've been fortunate enough to work with him for a few years now, and he is the fittest he's ever been in his entire life at 50 years old. On his 50th birthday, he told me, I feel better, I am fitter, I have hit milestones that I never thought I would hit, and I'm working out less than he ever has in his whole life. And it's not because he was working out less or more, it's because he was working out smarter. And we had a plan that made sense for what he was doing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? Yes, and sometimes I think that it's kind of mindset, right? That we think that more is better. And sometimes it's just like, it's not true. So I think it also applies to longevity in the fitness, right? Because some people just go head in, they start working out a lot, and then they cannot sustain that.
Right.
So I think like the good or smart way, like you mentioned, to actually work out, or how to work out or include that into your lifestyle, is to actually make it like you mentioned, or make jiu-jitsu if you like it, maybe go running, maybe do something different. We don't necessarily need to go to a CrossFit gym or whatever. But all these things, when they compound together, it's like they make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So that's it. So what do you think is the thing that brings the most results to your clients?
When they are connected to the process. So an example of that would be, for instance, yesterday, one of the clients that I'm fortunate to work with, we've been working together for a few years. She just retested her body composition. Mm-hmm. So she was down 3% in body fat within the 2 months, and we've had her for years. And her lean mass stayed the same, but all of her lifts are going up. She's getting faster. She's recovering better. This is the leanest she's ever been in her whole life. And it took us 3 years of working together, and we're still seeing incremental gains. So you don't see me on social media or on my website. I don't typically or ever post drastic before and after photos. I could. It could be really simple for me to get clients, drastically reduce their caloric intake, give them a few swaps and really hard workouts. They're going to adapt. Their bodies are going to change drastically. And then I could post a side-by-side photo of a 4 to 6 week transformation coach I am. But I don't mean that, because I know that that isn't going to be as sustainable as if I have someone who I've been working with for 3 years who is still seeing incremental gains. That's what I want. So when I start with people, I tell them, yes, we are here to try to make you feel better today and tomorrow, but everything we do together has in mind the 5-year, the 10-year, the 20, 30-year approach too. I don't want to just take your calories away. In fact, another little side tangent about nutrition, never once, so rarely, I don't even remember, have I had a client come to me where they're overeating. What it typically is people are either aren't eating the right things or they're not eating enough. So it's scary at first. Yeah, it's scary at first for people, especially, like women. A lot of times in our society, we have been taught that you need to not eat a lot, but and men as well. But when I get someone who's not eating enough, it's hard at first for people to be receptive to hearing, hey, I know you want to lose weight, and the secret to you losing this extra fat by eating more. That kind of sounds so contradictory to what we've been saying, but it works. But sometimes it takes time. So it might take, instead of 4 weeks of a drastic weight loss, I'm increasing someone's calories. It might take them 4 weeks just to maintain a stable body weight and have their hormones start to regulate and to start to undo the damage that they have done for years and years and years. So we have that process in mind. Someone might not see any changes in their weight at all for a month or two, but they're sleeping better. They actually have more of a sex drive. They get home and they want to have sex with their partner. Their hormones are changing and they're having physiological changes, but they might look down on a scale and still see the same weight. I still know that we're on a good track for long-term success because we look at it that are way more in depth and broad than just weight or how you look in the mirror.
Exactly. I really love that. And this is also what I face a lot, especially with women, like you mentioned. Like when I see what they are eating, what they eat, it's like scary. I mean, they eat healthy foods, like for example, salad with chickpeas, but the portion size is like, that would not be even one bite, or what I would consider one bite.
Right.
So,
and I never like to compare people, but sometimes I'll actually, when I'm working with clients, I like to keep it centered around them and not talk a lot about myself. But there are certain times that I have to say, hey, for reference, I am 5'6" tall. I think you're in a different metric system than I am, but I weigh about, anywhere between 145 to 150 pounds. I eat 3,000 calories a day. You're eating about 1,200 calories a day. You're taller than me, you're whatever it is. And it's not about comparing, but it's to give them a frame of reference.
Exactly.
Of you can really lean and feel really good while eating more.
Yes, and they feel better. They want to also move often. Like they want to move more, they want to exercise, they do better choices nutritionally, and also when it comes to their habits and movement and all these positive changes that accompany the change in just by increasing the amount of good calories.
And it's important too to take into consideration that a lot of people, we have psychological things around food, right? Maybe when you were a kid in the lunchroom, someone embarrassed you and you got afraid to eat, or maybe not even like something as like scarring as that, but it can look like different ways. Or some other, like at older generations, they were raised to be told that if there's food on your plate, you have to finish it, right? We don't want to waste anything. But those kind of psychological like pairings with food can have a long lasting effect. So you might be full already, you know, you're eating a meal and you've been eating slowly and chewing your food, and that allows you to feel your fullness sooner. If you feel full, you have a healthy mindset around food, you're able to stop. You're able to go, you know, put your extras in the fridge, or, you know, give them to your friend or whatever it is. But if you don't have a really healthy relationship with food, you might feel that fullness and continue to eat, right? You have, whether or not you recognize it, you might have something in your mind saying, no, you need to finish all of this food that you put out here. Right. And there's a lot of studies on even like a plate size affects how much food you put on and how much you overeat or don't eat. But the point of this like little side tangent is that there's psychology behind it too. So within my own clients, I want everyone, when they stop working with me and they go out into the real world without any accountability, I want them to have courage. I want them to be able to know that they can walk into a social situation like a work party where everyone's drinking and encouraging them to drink, but they understand alcohol isn't one of the things that fits in with what their lifestyle and goals are. I want them to have confidence to say, hey, thank you, I appreciate your offer, but no thank you, I'm going to skip on this glass of wine. Or, you know, maybe someone who does want to indulge a little bit might say, okay, I would like a little glass, thank you, and then that's it. You know, so they understand how they need to show up in a situation and how they want to, and how to respond accordingly without any of those little psychological setbacks in their head. We want to get rid of all of those. You know, a work party is actually a good example. I have quite a few people who on their quote unquote bad nutrition days, it's because they're with a bunch of other people who are engaging in food behaviors that they don't typically indulge in. And then they feel it's like that FOMO, that fear of missing out, like I have to, or that, you know, that societal pressure. I want to instill so much confidence in my clients that they can walk into the world's biggest candy shop and think, I don't even want this candy. I'm going to drink on my, you know, water bottle that I pre-packed.
Yeah. And it's actually, there is a book on intuitive eating, or well, there are more than one book. I don't remember which one it was. But based on research, what they cited or made as an example, was that if you forbid somebody to eat something, so for example, chocolate, you forbid to eat them chocolate, well, what they will crave is chocolate. But if you allow them to eat it, I mean, they will automatically reduce the intake of chocolate like over time. So maybe they will crave it for a few days, but if they have it, or they have this approval, or you know, I can eat it whenever I want, so therefore I don't desire it as much.
Yes. So to play off of that example, ice cream. You hear everyone say, oh, I love ice cream. Okay, so instead of having a pint of Ben & Jerry's where it's like 40 grams of sugar per serving, if I see a client and they send me their food log and I were to see something like that, instead of me saying, oh my God, you have way too much sugar, don't eat this. Instead I say, hey, here's an easy swap idea. What if instead of ice cream, next time you make your own nice cream? And I teach them how you can,
that's what I wanted to say.
bananas or papayas, and then you blend them up with a little bit of plant milk and some cocoa powder if you want a chocolate flavor, or maybe a little bit of drops of vanilla if you want to taste more vanilla-y. And then we teach ways that you can still have the fun item. You know, that's another thing. So psychologically, sometimes food is fun. And it's a connection piece. You know, you go out to eat for dinner with a new date or someone you love, or, you know, you go get ice cream with your friends after a big test or whatever it is. I want to teach people how can do all of those things just with a healthier option than what you're putting in your mouth.
So healthy steps, that is very important. I think that's a very good point of view mentioned. So one is ice cream. Do you have any other different popular swaps?
Ooh. One of most favorite recipes that I give to people, it's called a 3-ingredient cookie. So instead of like, a lot of times I have people who work in offices and people bring in treats and all of these things that are not healthy. So instead, I offer the suggestion of this cookie. And what is in this quote unquote cookie is it's banana, oats, and cocoa powder. And that's it. So you take those 3 ingredients, you smush them all up together. You just put them in little balls or cookie shapes on a pan, throw them in the oven until they're cooked as much as you want them to be cooked. And then that's it. And it tastes just like a cookie. And what's cool is once you stop eating as much processed sugars and you start cleaning up your diet and your hormones start to rebalance and your mind is more clear because your gut health is better. Once all of those things start to align, having like sitting down to a cookie from the grocery store that has a cup of sugar in it, it doesn't even taste good. It doesn't feel good. Once your system starts getting cleaner, you stop craving all of those things. Once you're putting in more real plants and whole foods, your gut microbiome starts to get more balanced. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners on here are health conscious and they understand like the mind-gut connection. We're still, as a society, learning a lot more about the science behind that. But we do understand right now that what we eat is affecting our gut microbiome, which affects our mental clarity. So you have people who, for instance, you drink multiple cups of coffee a day, or those energy drinks, or whatever it is. You have a lot of caffeine. Well, the real reason you're reaching for caffeine is not because you didn't sleep enough that night necessarily, but because your balance is off and your brain feels foggy, which makes you feel tired. And it's generally due to diet. And if we clean up your system, you're not going to need to grab a second cup of caffeine. You're not going to want to have all the cookies that so-and-so brought into the office. Yeah. You're going to really feel good with what you're eating and be really confident to stay on that track.
And that's actually what one of my clients commented recently, that as we are cleaning up her diet, as a side effect, she's drinking less coffee because she doesn't need that energy or this kind of kick from caffeine, right? So that's, I was even surprised. So we already mentioned, is that also your favorite food, by the way, that cookie or ice cream, or do you have a different favorite food?
My favorite food would, so I have the palate of like a toddler. I love simple foods by themselves. So if I really had to pick a favorite food, it would probably be a banana and peanut butter. Super simple, but I could eat that. I do eat that every day, and I have never gotten sick of it. So I'm not really a junk food person. I don't feel good with sugar. I know it doesn't serve me. So I stick to a lot more whole foods in general.
Yeah, and regarding that, I think it was last week, or maybe yes, last week I had a vegan burger, which was really amazing, tasty. But like 1 hour after that burger, I crashed like I haven't in a long time. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of experience that makes me stay away from junk food and stick with my whole food approach. I really love it. I mean, that's a very big difference. So I can only imagine like what people who constantly eat junk food or not so high quality food experience,
Because your system is so clean, you're able to recognize that. What's a big issue is a lot of people don't recognize the impact food has on them. So if someone else who eats refined sugar on a regular basis, if they eat a meal and they don't feel good an hour later, they don't have necessarily the same ability like you do and like we do to pair the fact of not feeling well an hour later, tying that into the meal they had an hour prior. Instead, they might think, oh, I'm just stressed, or I'm tired from work, or I always feel this way from my food. It's almost like you earn the right to feel and understand those differences, the cleaner and cleaner you get your diet to be.
Right, that's a perfect notion. And also I think that, once or when you are eating a certain way, it becomes your normal, right? So this is your normal state, and you don't think that I might feel better, and you start troubleshooting it only if it gets worse. So so instead,
this reminds me of another example. So thinking about cleaning up diet, sugar obviously is huge. Sugar is detrimental as it really is. We have a culture based around sugar. And this does not mean sugars from natural foods like sweet potatoes or berries. I'm not talking about those kind of sugars. Those digest differently because there's macronutrients and all the good stuff.
Yeah, I'm
referring to refined sugars, right? Those instant sugars, the even agave or honey, all of these things, your body still processes it the same way. So the example, sugary coffee drinks. For instance, in the US here, Starbucks is everywhere. And there's all sorts of frappuccinos and mochas and all this stuff. I had a nutrition client come to me one time, and she said that I will do everything you say, except I am not going to give up my morning mocha from Starbucks. So, of course, what I hear is I have an attachment or an addiction to the sugary drink, and I want to improve, but I don't want to give up this comfort. So instead of me saying, well, no, actually, you do need to give that up. Instead, the first week of working together, I said, all this week, I want you to do, the only thing you're going to change in your diet is you're going to order your mocha without whipped cream on top. Do you think you can do that? And she said, well, yeah, I could do that. But that's manageable. So she did. And then once you get used to the delicious flavor without the whipped cream, okay, great. Now what I'm going to have you do is when you order, if it usually comes with 3 pumps of the syrup, I'm going to have you only ask for 2. Okay, that's doable. It still tastes good. You're starting to get accustomed to having a little bit less sugar. You're breaking that addiction. Okay, then the next week, let's take out 1 more pump. The week after that, let's ask for soy milk or almond milk instead of the whole milk or the dairy cow milk. And then before you know it, it's a month or 2 later, and you have someone who's enjoying black coffee. What? This is someone who said, I will never give this up. But instead of just taking it away in that child mentality where you just can't, and their pacifier is gone or their bottle's gone and they're sad and they're crying. Instead, I took the pacifier away and I gave them a little bit something else. And then eventually we kind of pulled that away and gave them something even better. So that the habitual progressive steps, whether it is breaking a sugar addiction or whether it is just having a better mindset around food or slowing down, it's giving yourself those incremental habits that you feel good with and master them.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Building on the habits, on what is already working for a client, for the person, and making small changes. And that's a way how to make a sustainable lifestyle change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what about when we speak about the workouts, what is your favorite workout right now?
Ooh. So my own personal workouts, right now I train twice a day. One session is an Olympic weightlifting session, and then the other session is more like bodybuilding or a little bit of circuit, kind of a little bit more intensity type work. And what I've been loving the most lately, besides those, because I love lifting, is that when I get done, if I have time and I feel really good, I've been playing with some calisthenic stuff. So like yesterday, I stayed after my workout, and for probably 20 minutes, I worked on flagpoles. And if anyone listening doesn't know what a flagpole is, it's where you grab onto something. You can actually think about like if you saw a stop sign and you grabbed onto the pole underneath the sign, and then you lifted your body up so you're perfectly straight and perpendicular or parallel with the ground. And it's a body weight exercise where you're literally holding your body straight and sideways. So those things for me personally right now have been a lot of fun because I enjoy being able to control my body through different ranges of motion. Another example, I've been doing aerial yoga. If anyone's not familiar with aerial yoga in a hammock. So it's like these silks, and you can get inside of it. You can flip upside down and do inversions. So right now for me personally, what I'm enjoying the most is exploring different movements and giving myself like body weight challenges that are sort of higher level gymnastics type stuff. Yeah.
I really love that because it's like I think it comes to like reconnecting with your dancing history, right? Because this aerial yoga is kind of dance in the air.
Yes, and it's play. So I talk a lot about play. So something that if I ever start to feel like off, or I catch myself being overly self-critical or stressed out, I know that I need more play. And to me personally, play is those things. It's movement. Outside of the gym, it can be things like being outside and playing with my dogs, having good conversations with a stranger or someone in line somewhere. To me, all of those moments are like that creativeness, that play. To other people, that could be something like listening to music or tending to a garden or riding dirt bikes. You know, play is different to everyone, but there's one thing that we all have in common is that we need it. We all need that play. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's like this pyramid chart. And the main part of the chart is the basic physiological needs. So once those are met, things like your food, your water, your fuel, everything you need to survive, once all those needs are met, on top of that, our next needs that we need are things like self-fulfillment and creative activities, creative outlets. So even if you're not someone who wants to be a professional bodybuilder or someone who wants to be able to snatch their body weight overhead in a smooth movement, that's okay. You can still explore movement and fitness and get fitter and healthier and feel good just through play, through exploring new things, creative outlets. So regardless if you're in the gym, and I'm so excited for us to talk more, but if I could leave the listeners with one piece of advice, it would be to play. Figure out what that looks like to you and do it often, and come back to it every time you start to feel off, or if you're stressed or, you know, fighting with your spouse or your boss at work is like getting on your nerves. Go just be you. Go do something creative. And if that looks like movement, great. If it looks like something else, that's great too.
Yeah, you don't see me, but I've been smiling all the time as you're mentioning all these things because I really love, or what I really love about coaching is how these things or areas of life transcend, right? Because we cannot only speak about nutrition, only about movement, only about, I don't know, workouts, but all these things are interconnected, and one area overreaches to another, like social life also mixed in together. And yeah, at least that's the way how I see.
And I'm sure you know, as a coach, sometimes we get in coach mode where we want to tell the person everything, how to do it, what to do it, when to do it. But what really good coaches start to recognize is that it's a balance. It's a balance between educating them so the people begin to learn how to do things themselves, but then giving a bit of structure and then also giving them the play. So if my Instagram handle is at simply_whimsical. So simply, in my philosophy, simply is the structure. It is those the habits that you have that set you up for success every day. It's, stretching, drinking enough water, eating those vegetables, and then the whimsical is the play. That's the self-expression, the fun, the heart that goes behind what you do. So you need to have both of those. And in my own coaching, sometimes, even though all of my clients have like a structural progression that they're working on based on their needs, I schedule in play. So when you're working with adults who have 50 to 60 hour work weeks and 3 kids at home and, all of these responsibilities, and you're adding all this stuff on, very frequently, they don't go out and play on their own. So with my clients, I schedule in play for them. That could be something like every week or every other week, for instance, they have a day that's a free day. And during the free day, their homework is to either go do a new class, learn a movement they've never done, dance with their spouse, go hiking with their children, whatever that means to them based on who they are. But it is important, if you don't already do things on a regular basis that bring you joy and give you a creative outlet, schedule it in. Whether or not you work with a coach, it could be something like giving yourself every Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to noon. Everybody knows you're unreachable, and you get that time to go do what you want to do. Whether that's go explore a new hike, like a hiking trail, or that could be walking around the block with your dogs and stopping to smell all the flowers. Whatever it is, it's important that if you don't play on a regular basis, to schedule it in to make sure it happens.
Yeah, I love it. And for example, you can, for somebody who is really like very stressed and has a lot of not a lot of time, it can be early in the morning. Well, typically this is what works for a lot of people that I found.
One more tip just like that is breathing. So meditation is another one of those things that everyone realizes they could benefit from. We hear about it all of the time, but it's almost overwhelming. General population to think, you want me to sit down and do nothing for 20 to 30 minutes and close my eyes and breathe? Hell no. It can sound intimidating, but you just have to work it in for how it works for you. So a little hack that I like to recommend to people is, instead of, if you're not comfortable just sitting down and meditating, a more tangible step is I give people the homework of, I want you to accumulate 100 mindful breaths every day. That could look like 10 sets of 10. So throughout the day, anytime you think about your breathing, you stop and give yourself 10 slow, mindful breaths. And even if you just did that 10 times throughout the day and you accumulate 100 slow, mindful breaths, we breathe on average in tens of thousands of times a day. But at least today, you took the time to slow down and to be mindful and effortful and conscious of your breathing 100 different times. That's powerful. That allows you to gain some momentum. Wow, for the last 3-4 weeks, I have been doing 100 mindful breaths a day. This is so great. Maybe I could sit down for 5 minutes and close my eyes and breathe, and I would be okay. And then maybe they'll try that. Boom. Wow, I felt great. I had some clarity come to me during my time there, and I feel more relaxed. I showed up as a better friend. I showed up as a better coworker, whatever it is, because you had those moments to settle down. Then maybe that same person the next day might try 7 minutes, or maybe move up to 10 minutes, whatever it is. So building that momentum is huge. So another tip is that if you are someone who struggles to breathe and slow down, sneak it in. Do 10 sets of 10 slow breaths throughout the day. That could be sitting at a stoplight. It could be waiting in line in the morning. You're switching over a load of laundry. It doesn't matter. Slow down and breathe.
Yeah, I really love that, because as we mentioned, I think in the beginning of the podcast episode, was that like playfulness or Also, meditation can have different forms. For example, for me, it might be running, but I also really find it very meditative to prepare food, cutting vegetables and really making food prep. It's like very meditative state of mind for me. And yeah, it doesn't mean that I'm just sitting and doing nothing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate your time and all the tips that you shared with us today. I mean, they were very practical tips, and based on how you are speaking, I see that how your experience is how a good coach you are. So once more, thank you very much for joining me today. And if there is anything you would like to add that we haven't mentioned yet, I think now it's the best time.
Yeah, well, two things. One, thank you for having me on. I know this is the first time we've talked in person, but you and I have had conversation back and forth online. So I feel like we're already friends. I feel like I've known you for a while, which I really do appreciate. The last thing I would like anyone is you are not alone. So even though sometimes things might feel really tough or you might not feel like you have support, there are people out there who want the same things you do and who are willing to help you get there. So you're never alone. There's always something you can do, and it is up to you to make those little magic steps happen.
Yes, for example, you can reach out to Rebecca at
rconlinecoaching.com.
Yeah, that's perfect. Or on Instagram.
Yep, at simply_whimsical.
Yeah, and I will make sure to put these links also in the show notes, where you can just easily find them and will be linked to them. And by the way, there is one more thing. I noticed you have a ebook that's vegans.
Yes, that link is on the website. So anyone who wants to go on rconlinecoaching.com and click on the shop button, that is a vegan ebook that my sister and I, who she's also plant-based, have. We spent about almost a year working on it. It has a lot of tips and tricks and just good general resources for anyone who is either already plant-based or who knows nothing about it and wants a good, just sort of comprehensive guide to understand more. So it makes things a little bit more approachable, and it's definitely a good resource. Check it out.
Yeah, that sounds great. So all the guys, thank you for listening. Rebecca, once more, thank you for joining us, sharing your experience and all the energy and your secret sauce.
Yes, eat your veggies. That's it. That's the secret.
Yeah. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. All the important links are to be found in the podcast show notes. So there you will find links how to connect, how to reach my guests, how to reach myself. If you are looking for coaching experience to help with your nutrition, whether it's for performance or you just want to feel better, perform better, look better, then reach out to me and we can start working together.